Come along, children. Now we're going to have a little music.
Hey guys, I'm Andres.
This is RB3.
I'm Sabrina.
And this is First Cut, and this is our review of Swallow, a new movie that people have kind of been talking about on the internet sphere throughout this time in quarantine and throughout COVID-19. This is another movie that people are kind of watching on VOD and people are kind of keeping up with when it comes to smaller indie films. And this is an interesting one. It's directed by this guy. His name is, I just had the name too, which is funny, Carlo Mirabella-Davis. And this is a really fascinating movie. It's a really well shot movie, but I want to get your guys' thoughts on this movie because it's not quite the same narrative that we usually have in normal Hollywood films. I think that's the best way of saying what I'm trying to say. But what did you guys think of this movie? I'll start with you, Sabrina.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed this movie. I enjoy what it was trying to say. Or at least what I think it was trying to say, because it's not one of those that's like hit you over the head with it.
And I'll ask you guys.
We'll get into that. Yeah, we'll get into that. So it's basically, for me, it's a highly effective, like psychological kind of body horror film. It is definitely hard to watch at times, but I think the underlying themes that are presented, maybe they could have been handled a little bit better, presented in a clearer manner, but by the end, by the wrap of this film, it worked really, really well for me. As you said, it is amazingly like shot. The set and costume design is the thing that stood out to me the most. It's kind of like reminiscent of 1950s. Even Haley Bennet's hair and everything, just her style completely, which I think is so cool because it looks like it could be set in like the 1950s era, but then she's playing like games on her phone. So that's how you know it's in modern day. And I love that because I think it adds to the overall kind of message the story is trying to say. So yeah, Haley Bennet was so great in that one.
RB3.
Okay. So I'm glad that Sabrina got some positive thoughts out because I have to put on the hater hat for this one. I thought this movie was kind of terrible. Personally, terrible? I didn't. Yeah, it was kind of. To me, this is the exact kind of art house surface level nonsense that I kind of like have always despised throughout my entire life. No offense to anybody who's liked it. I mean, obviously, Sabrina, you're a big fan of it. I just think for me personally, like when I watch it, when I watch movies, I usually like expect like a theme or like a concise content with like evidence to like support what they're trying to say. This movie kind of felt like a little hollow to me, which is funny because the movie Swallow and Hollow. It felt a little surface level, and it felt like it was just like artsy and weird for the sake of being artsy and weird. That's just how I kind of took it. So,
okay, here's my thing. Okay, I don't even know why this is my first question, but even if that's the case, if it is just artsy and weird for the sake of being artsy and weird, isn't that kind of a good way to kind of break into Hollywood? I feel like that's what a lot of people try to do in films nowadays, anyways.
Yeah, I mean.
That's just.
I mean, I feel like that's how some people break in. That's how like Michael Bay breaks in. That's how people, you know, who feel a little less. People who have a little less substance. To me, it's like, you know, you can have like it is beautifully shot, and all the compliments that Sabrina gave like are true. Like it's beautifully shot as well. Like the costume design, the set design, all plays to like a theme that has like. But what they're trying to present is a little unclear to me. Like I tried to figure out, well, maybe it means like this, like because the whole idea, like when we talk about body horror, the whole idea is like this young lady, she's just swallowing random things because she's dealing with like the psychological trauma that happened in her life. For one, the trauma itself is a little unclear. They never really present it in a clear way, which is fine. You can have a level of ambiguity there. That's totally acceptable. But then like her reactions to things are just kind of like all over the place too. And then the fact that she's kind of with this husband who's kind of playing this like one note character, who's like kind of like irredeemable, like for the sake of being irredeemable. It felt like every obstacle she approached in her life was like kind of like playing on like this one note thing. And I don't feel like there was really like a lot of character development that was like happening throughout this film. So I don't know. To me, it's like, yes, storytelling, like execution wise, it did a good job for what was on the page, but I just question what was on the page. you know.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like the theme of the movie is hit in the first 5 minutes, if I'm being honest. And I know not RB3, Sabrina, you briefly mentioned Swallow to me last week when you talked about it, and I don't know if you remember, but you asked me what my thoughts were.
Yeah.
And I kind of just avoided the question because I kind of echo RB3. I didn't want to say it right up front, but I feel like in the first 5 minutes, this movie is saying one thing. It's the idealism of a trophy wife, right? It's that idea of being stuck inside the house and viewed as more an object and a trophy as something to be gained for the success of a man, right? That's the 1950s vibe. That's very purposeful, right? The interior design, the production design is that way on purpose because it's showing you that trophy wife, housewife mentality of I'm just here to look pretty and stay in the kitchen and be like, I missed you, honey. I was here all day just decorating the house, and that kind of, 1950s trophy wife vibe. And her swallowing different objects is her trying to break out of that as a way of self-identity. And like RB3 said, almost like a therapeutic way to kind of get over her traumatic experience. My problem was, I don't know if I could do that for 2 hours. When I did it for 30 minutes and I was like, okay, are we going to keep doing this? Because I think I get it. I got the theme, and that was my only problem. But the way this movie is shot, my God, like, especially with the way they shoot a house, the way they shoot a balcony, like, this is some really, really cool cinematography. And that's why I kind of came back at RB3, because I feel like sometimes if you just have a really cool, weird, visually interesting movie, that's kind of all you need to be a feature that kind of breaks you into Hollywood. And that's why I kind of push back on him on that sense. But I don't know, Sabrina,
you know what
are your thoughts? I want to get back to Sabrina, though.
All right.
Yeah, I want
something. You made a good example, and I want to get back to that. But
okay. But I want to let her defend the movie then.
Yeah. So for me, the thing about this film, we see right from the start, she's kind of trapped in that kind of being that ideal wife. She's beautiful. She's always dressed so nice. Her hair's always done. She cooks dinner for him by the time he gets back, like, home from work. And we kind of see right from the start, she is pregnant, and it definitely, we get it right away that she doesn't want to be pregnant, or she didn't really like think about the idea. And then it's there, it's done. So for me, the whole thing of swallowing, because it actually is based, I don't have the name off the top of my head, but it's based on a real life thing. Pika. Yeah, that actually is very present in pregnant women in real life. But it could be anybody, but in pregnant women, it's like dirt, things like that. They get some weird craving to eat it. But for me, I thought it was kind of her taking control of her own body, because becoming pregnant, maybe she feels like she lost control of that for a second. And now she's stuck in this situation with this husband that she's not super happy about. And I loved it. I am a fan of like body horror, and it is weird and it's hard to watch for sure, because as she's doing it, I'm just like, girl, come on, like, don't do that. Don't swallow that tack or whatever. I also, this might be completely out there, but this is how I felt while watching this. I saw it kind of as a metaphor for like that whole, like, you know how prescription medication is kind of present a lot in like suburban areas with like husbands and wives and things like that. I kind of saw it as a metaphor, so that like her swallowing objects was like a coping mechanism. So I saw those two go hand in hand with that thing that happens when you're pregnant, when you crave weird objects, and then being a metaphor for like basically, like a coping mechanism, whether it's prescription pills or alcohol or things like that. Because she clearly is unhappy. And so that's kind of how I saw it. Her using these coping mechanisms to take back her own body, try to take back her own life, have one thing that isn't already set for her, because it seems like the life she's living at the moment is already like one and done. Oh, she's pregnant. She's going to have this kid. They're going to live in this beautiful house. He's going to continue to have his amazing job. And that's why I love the ending, because she takes everything all back herself. She doesn't care anymore. Maybe she will have no money. She has clearly no family to really fall back on, because she reaches out to to a bunch of people in her family, and none of them like want her at the time. But that's okay. She kind of leaves, and she has some type of satisfaction that she was able to get out of that situation. So that's what I thought about it all. But yeah, I agree. I echo your sentiment too, what you said about kind of like weird art house movies that like look like this, because it is a great, if there was like no dialogue and you just look at everything, that all is perfect. I'm not gonna, like, that is stunning. But yeah, of course, everything is subjective, so I can get that the story itself and the dialogue and maybe the way everything, like the execution of it all, might not land for everybody, and I completely understand.
Yeah, RB3.
No, well, no, I mean, what you're saying is like 100% correct. Like that is like probably the driving theme that the movie is going for. That I think that's something that they make pretty prevalent throughout it. I guess my thing is like, and I'm going back to what Andres was talking about with how you kind of get the theme in the first 5 minutes, and like after 30 minutes in, you're just kind of like, what? Like, were you seeing the same thing again? And to me, it's perfectly, you kind of perfectly captured it. Like to me, and when you're talking, and then going back to the conversation about how filmmakers do this kind of films to get on, this feels like the perfect short film. Like I feel like this would be perfect if it was like 25, 30 minutes of this story, but beyond like the one driving conflict that maybe sort of kind of gets resolved towards the end, maybe two driving conflicts with the whole reason of her trauma that kind of is revealed like halfway through the film. There's two kind of flimsy threads of conflict that may or may not have resolved themselves in the film. So it kind of leaves a little too much ambiguity, a little bit too much for the imagination. There's a lot of effect, but there's not a lot of cause. And if there isn't a lot of cause, I would like, and if there is just some sort of spiritual kind of mental thing happening, I would like a little more like explanation of that. But yeah, I mean, overall, like I could totally see why you, Sabrina, or Andres, or anybody else would like this movie a whole lot. Just for me personally, it just to me personally, it wasn't it.
Yeah.
Okay. Any final words?
Yeah. I mean, I say check this movie out, kind of make an opinion for yourself, because this is one of those weird things. If it doesn't land for you in the first like 20 minutes, you're probably not going to like it. Me and my roommate Eliza both watched it together, and we loved it. I don't know if it's from the perspective of it being like a kind of small female character, because her as a human is so small in the beginning. Like she's like not deciding anything for herself. She has almost nothing to her. And then we find out kind of like backstories. I know I'm kind of going back into this, but we find out backstories throughout that she was like an artist and she had plans, and she kind of gave all that up for this life that she's not happy with. So a story like this, it's interesting. The way it's presented is interesting, but I think from the set and costume design and Haley Bennett's performance alone, I think it's definitely worth a watch if you're interested, because I know that trailer, I've seen it everywhere since it dropped way before the film came out. I kept seeing people post on Twitter because that trailer is stunning. So that kind of agrees with what RB3 said about like a short film, kind of condensing this into like something smaller. And I get that, and I understand too. So, but I recommend it.
There you go. Alrighty, guys, those are our thoughts on this movie, Swallow. Let us know if you've seen this movie in the comments down below and what your thoughts are. Let us know if you want to check out this movie based on our recommendation or based on if you like the trailer. Either way, guys, those are our thoughts for the First Cut crew. I'm Andres.
Is RB3?
I'm Sabrina.
We're peacing out. Peace out, guys.
I did something unexpected today.